Thank you. Hi, everyone. So, first of all, COVID has been so long, right? So, we even have this term pre-COVID and post-COVID because it's just so long. And for me, this is really the first time I stand up again face-to-face in front of big audience after COVID. So I would like to ask your permission that if my presentation today are not entirely precise or not comprehensive, because I'm kind of like used to presenting virtually the past 2 years with the script in front of me and really completely being precise. Anyone recognize this? Do you relate to this? Yes. So before I start, I really would like to acknowledge a really, really cool learning opportunity today. I learned a lot about the insightful programmatic approaches. I think, Thomas, you shared a really great journey from Metro. And the presentation from ING today about the riding the waves. So what you will see today from me is not really, maybe less so from programmatic approach, but getting into more depth on the leadership development part of it. So just to set the expectation, and hopefully this will be a little bit more complementary for you. So less programmatic, but depth into the change in leadership development. Another thing as well that I really like from Nadine's presentation from Lab, the outside and inside perspectives. So what you will see today, I think, is really more towards the inside perspectives. You will see more on how to make this inside perspective really meaningful. Because what I'm really passionate as a person is really to help leaders connect not only to their brain, but also to their heart. And how to make that? What's the journey that we have? That's what I would like to share today with you. By no means this is a complete journey. So we're still doing it as I'm presenting it to you today. So I'm really curious to hear as well later what the questions that you have and also the feedback that you have. So that's to start with. And I will learn how to navigate the slides. First of all, I need to show this because at the end of the session, I'm going to have a quiz. If you can remember this on top of your head, we'll sponsor your fuel for 1 full year. No, I'm joking. This is really to cautionary that the presentation today is a little bit from Shell, a little bit from me. It's my personal experience, my personal insight as well as Winda. So you should not use this as the basis for your market decision, right? So no quiz, unfortunately. I think, first of all, I just want to get this in the air. I sat next to a gentleman from UBS at the back. He asked me, like, where do you come from? Where do you work? Shell. Oh, you guys have really interesting time right now. I'm glad I'm in Germany. If I were in the UK and someone say, interesting time, interesting in the UK might feel different, right? So for us, this is really, really an interesting time because if people hear about, you can see some exchange already at the back, different definition about interesting. So if people hear Shell, they're thinking oil and gas, and maybe not even a lot of people knows that we are really shifting towards being an energy company. So this figure is kind of like that we formally have. In 2020, we have actually already more than 60,000 electrical vehicle charging station and more. So the change that we're trying to ignite here is really from really deep, proud engineering company into an energy company that's really work with customer and coming out with first inquiry and ask the customer, what do you actually need? Instead of coming in with, we have super engineers, deep water solution, the way the world we're operating right now, because we have a lot of superb engineering solution, but as we move into the energy company, we need to really focus more on the customer, and that's the change journey we are in right now. And where do we start? We start from the purpose, and I will share with you later why we start our journey with kind of like the purpose, because what we're trying to do here is really connect to the intrinsic motivation. You might recognize this as professionals, that at some point, money doesn't really matter anymore. You know, when you're hit certain level, there is something deeper that will bring you to work beyond money. And for us, we are trying to really tap into this intrinsic motivation, which is powering progress together. So we are really powering progress together by providing more and cleaner energy solution. And this powering progress might mean differently. So we have different pillars. I think I saw this as well in the presentation from ING, kind of like riding the waves, and there are many different pillars in helping people to ride the waves. And for us too. So I think this is a little bit of kind of like, you know, almost like a recipe that you will need to have if you're driving change, right? You need to start with the purpose and what's within that purpose. And for us, we're not only here to generate the shareholder value, but we're also here to achieve net zero emission, and also to powering lives, and also respecting nature. And the interesting time for us is not only in dealing with the external world, actually even within our companies. So we have people in the upstream business that start to feel like, you know what? Yes, I'm in upstream. I'm still predominantly in the gas business, but I want to have also my moonshot. What's my moonshot in achieving net zero emission? So you start to have people coming up with these kind of questions as well. And that's great, because if they don't ask, it means they don't care, right? So actually, the more you have this kind of dynamic within the company, it means people start processing and start to own that. So what we're learning in kind of like before we get into the leadership is that we need to put things in one coherent story. So we start with the purpose, and this is our strategy, the different pillars that you have seen, that you see in the previous slides, and the key enablers on how who we are, how we work, and how we are organized. And the leadership later will link to this, because maybe you have heard that we just completed really like the biggest reorganization in the past decades or so. So we just recently completed this reorganization. We engage people on our purpose, and who we are, how we work, and how we're organized is really kind of like the glue that enables the delivery of our purpose. And then now getting into the leadership journey. Change doesn't happen when leaders don't really lead that from the front. So to give also a bit of a context on my presentation today, I am part of leadership and team development consulting group within Shell. So I work on kind of like the corporate level. So what we do here is not the only thing that we do to drive change. So we ignite change on many different levels. So while the perspective I'm sharing here is the corporate perspectives, you will see as well change being ignited on the country level, line of business level, also the team level. And what I'm sharing here is really to share with you, how do we start from sort of like the corporate level if you want to ignite change at scale? Because for us in Shell, that's really our challenge. If you're leading a small team, it's much easier to get into the depth. But when you would like to ignite change for more than 87,000 employees, where to start? And how can you make sure that people talk in the same kind of like language, terminology, so that when someone, I'm going to introduce you later to the concept of learner mindset, that's the heart of our transformation. So what does it take so that when someone say or mention learner mindset, the other part of the world in Malaysia, for example, they also have the same understanding, because this was really important in driving change at scale, some consistency. So what we learn is that first of all, we need to provide a purpose that ignite the heart, so really something that touch your heart, and the fundamental shift. So the fundamental shift here is the concept of learner mindset. I'll share this with you later, what does that mean? And also take integrated approach to change. So you will see that this change, we are embedding this in many of the activities in the company. In the safety, the way we look at safety, for example. If there is anything that Shell great at is safety. I led organization effectiveness in Malaysia several years ago, and I heard from the contractors we worked there. They said that, you know what, as contractor, I love working for Shell, because if they put up their hand and they say something is unsafe with the plant, we will not ask twice to shut down the plant. Because for us, safety is something that's really important. We want everyone to go home safe. That's our philosophy. So that's what we learn as well about change. Spot something that's already working well. What's really your strength in the company? For us, the strength is safety. We latch on that. So I went into this already. I feel really strange holding the mic, by the way, because this may be a little bit stereotyping, but as an Asian, when I hold the mic like this, my you laugh. What are you thinking of when someone holding mic? Karaoke, exactly. No, I'm not going to. I'm going to spare you from my singing. So what's important in igniting purpose? Keep on asking leaders, what does it mean to you? Why are you here? And I think I saw some colleagues from Coach Hub. I think, yes, this might be really familiar in the coaching world. When you're coaching someone, you don't only look at that person as, you know, a leader or so. You're looking at them as a person. So this is what we bring into the company. When we're asking people, what does it mean to you? What does this strategy, what does this purpose mean to you? We really ask them to you as a person, not just as a leader of the team. Fundamental shift. This is where I'm going to talk about the learner mindset. First of all, we try to identify, hey, what are the key behavioral shifts we want to make in the company, right? And those are the shifts that we would like to make, maximizing our performance, which is really clear. This is business talk, all the management will connect to, right? But what's really also important, live our values and goal zero, because we care. We want everyone to go home safe at every single day. And grow trust in us, because we realize that in order to power progress together, we can't do it alone. We need to work with our customers, we need to work with our partners, and we need to trust each other. So that's the shift that we would like to make, because you might recognize this if you come from also a company with strong engineering culture. We have quite sometimes inflated self-confidence, because we look at the design end to end and really feel like, you know what, we'll make sure that it's good. But trust in us also meaning that, you know, you really ask the question on what do you need from us? How can we help you so that we really partner together? There's quite a shift from really looking at the design end to end ourselves to doing it together with the customer. Engage and inspire, I think this is also really familiar. And at the heart of it, what we really would like to have, the shift here is learner mindset. What is learner mindset? So you might be familiar with some of the big terms here. We say here that the shift that we would like to make in the company is really that we want everyone to believe that, you know, everyone can grow their ability, can learn from success, and from mistakes, and can speak up safely in an open environment. So it starts with the growth mindset, use feedback, persistent to achieve feedback. And in order to allow that, we need to create the psychological safety. And the psychological safety here is that, you know, sometimes we are so much trained into creating good impression. Do you relate to this? How many of you sometimes feel afraid to ask questions because you feel, this might be a stupid question? Just look around. You are not alone. Me too. And this is really the challenge that we create for leaders. How can you create such an environment where people can truly believe that there is no stupid question? If anything, you should actually ask ignorant questions, because if something feels ignorant or feels like, oh, this might be a stupid question, believe me, you're not alone. And actually, you're doing it a favor by asking that question. So we want leaders to really develop this psychological safety. And in doing that, really weaving in human performance. So that's kind of like the the concept in the brain, right? So now how do we bring it to the heart? We start to educate people, because actually, if you look at learner mindset at the one side of the continuum, people start to make an assumption. If learner is on one side, what is the other side? Usually people think nowhere. So you either learn or you either already know it. So this is also our learning, is we need to really educate people on the change, right? Because it's also good to know things. You're paid because you're bringing your expertise here. And we educate people that the other side of learner mindset is really a fixed mindset. And this fixed mindset is a really, this is like a super playground for people who are studying organizational psychology like me. Anyone else doing psychology here? Yay, colleagues. So you might be familiar with this concept, right? In the fixed mindset, there are this kind of like internal drive. I need to look smart. I don't have the skills. If I do something wrong, then I will be judged. Even for me, just to walk here, I feel like, oh my God, I'll be standing in front of so many experts. And what if I say something wrong? What if what I'm saying is not making sense? What if I will get questions later that I cannot answer? I will look stupid. So when I am in that mindset, that might actually drive kind of like, you know, the motivation, I need to learn more and everything. But the energy that comes from that mindset is restrictive, because I feel like, oh, I need to perform. But what we are trying to educate our staff here is that come from the perspective of learner mindset. So what? If you ask, if you get question and you cannot answer, it means you're learning. It means so this is also creating permission for myself. If I get questions later from you that I cannot answer, it means thank you for your input, because there is something that maybe I haven't thought about before. And it feels liberating. And it feels, you know, this is where we are really enrolling our leaders, come out with this learner mindset perspective, because who knows what's good and what's bad? And by doing that, their mindset becomes more expansive. So there's the fundamental shift. And what do we mean by taking integrated approach to change? This is what we mean, but actually, honestly, I don't think any of this is really rocket science, right? I think anything here surprise you? I think as change practitioner, should be quite familiar with this. So how many of you leading a team at the moment? Can you put your hand up? There you go. How many of you would call yourself change and transformation practitioner? So that means I don't even need to go into the details on these slides. I wonder, what do I need to unpack here? Any particular areas you would like me to speak about? You can ask me later. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is really life change, right? So I don't have a slide at the end that says, so this is what we are learning from this journey, because this journey is not done yet. What we can share with you here is really, what are the questions that our leaders have? So the questions around, you can see there, how do I keep my organization moving whilst dealing with uncertainty and not knowing all the answers to key strategic decisions? That is really deep, eh? Because leaders usually stand up with a lot of expectation that you will need to share the direction, you will need to be able to answer all the questions. And those are the questions that our leaders are grappling with. And this is why it's more important that we bring in learner mindset. Because with all of those expectations weighing down, the less our leaders can learn. So that's the essence of this of this change. So acknowledging that they sometimes really struggle with that. What is the approach that we are taking? Anyone have seen this model before? Say some nodding. So embracing the interior of transformation. That's what the essence of learner mindset journey that we are doing right now. As a company with quite a big scale, so remember 87,000 employees, we have quite a lot of experience in driving change at scale. So with some programs, well managed, we have multiple program management offices, and yet, because of the change we are dealing right now, it really requires authenticity coming out from our leaders. We start to think, you know what, we need to have more, we need to have stronger journey in the interior, so really looking inside. And what this model says that, look, you can drive change on the individual, what it takes for you from individual level or from collective. And there is also this angle on exterior and interior. The exterior is really what can be observed, what can people see from outside. And this interior is something more subtle. It's harder to measure as well. If I will get question on how are you going to measure this interior, this might be something that I will not be able to answer with 100% accuracy. Because how it feels when we are able to touch it is that you will start to see leaders talking differently and really with more reflection. Maybe sometimes even with more pause when they heard difficult question and not just kind of like, you know, coming out with answer just so that they sound smart. And those type of things really much harder to measure. Of course, we have this measurement on learner mindset, what have you, on the regular basis. That's something that we do to kind of like touch the sort of like the pulse of the organization. But measuring the interior is much harder. That's what we learn as well. Last thing, what we learn is that in every engagement, for every one of us, not only the leaders, because you are here the change and transformation practitioners, right? We are the catalyst of change. So you yourself, I learned that I myself, I am an instrument of change. I can bring PowerPoint, I can bring programs, but when people look at me, kind of like, you know, with less authenticity, they will just look at my slides, but not feeling really inspired about the change. So we really try to enroll our leaders and also the people who are driving change to reflect on what does it mean to you? Because everything starts with us. So some stories then, you know, how can I embody this change? And this is what I also ask our leaders to do. I'm based in The Hague. I could have taken flight to come here to Frankfurt, but I chose to go by train because apparently ICE, it rides on green electricity. And I thought, wow, that's actually quite cool. There's less there's less carbon footprint for myself. I'm shifting into becoming a vegetarian because I learned that the CO2 footprint of meat industry is enormous. If you're interested to learn about this, you can watch the one of the Netflix. Someone, for you who are smiling, do you know the program I'm talking about? Yes, Conspiracy. Oh, there you go. I haven't even watched it. I'll put it on my list. And What the Health is also really inspiring. So really being conscious about our own CO2 footprint. I'm actually right now planning quite a big leadership event where I'm planning to only serve vegetarian food. Of course, I get a lot of challenge. So what we're going to do, maybe, fingers crossed, we're still going to serve meat and stuff a little bit at the corner so that it's almost like a smoking booth when people need to walk like that to eat meat. So we'll see. I'll let you know how it goes. Another thing as well is that dealing with triggers. This is something we introduce more and more to our leadership. dealing with triggers and recognizing your triggers. Because when we are stressed, it really, created, maybe subconsciously, unconsciously, creating this fixed mindset. And as leaders, it's really important because their stress level, they can pass it on to their team. And then that's how you get the whole organization burned out, because people passing this on, right? So an example, I know when I was younger especially, I get so stressed from exams. So stressed that sometimes, up to now, I still dream about going to exam. Anyone else have this, dreaming going to exam? Yes, thank you, I'm not alone. And the truth is that sometimes even life feels like a big exam. You know, like when you go to board to have presentation, when you're meeting really important clients, and when you look at it like an exam, then you have this all pressure within you to perform. Yes, it's okay if you're alone, but if you're working with a team, then you start to pass on this stress as well to your team. Then before you know it, everyone working under this fixed mindset, I got to perform, I got to perform. And that's something that really the shift that we would like to make in the company, in the organization. Be conscious about this trigger. Oh, okay, maybe I feel stressed out here. Take a deep breath, ground yourself. So who knows what is good and what is bad? If I will get question I can't answer, I'm learning. There is always something to learn. And hopefully by doing that, we can create not only a better organization, but also a better world. So that's it.
Thank you very much. If you don't mind staying, and first of all, I won't say that was interesting, because I also lived in the UK for a long time. It took me about 10 years to realize that when people were saying that's an interesting thought, they meant the opposite of, appropriate. It was an inspiring and fascinating finale for this morning session. And if you're happy, I'm sure people may have a question or two before we transfer to the round table. Yep. Thank you so much, Vin.
Thank you very much, Winda. I'm very, very interested. So this dealing with triggers, how do you do that? I mean, I can imagine doing it by individual coaching, but is there anything else that you can do?
So that's a really big question. What we are doing is that, first of all, we introduce this language on personal trigger. Because by introducing the language, you give people this realization on, ooh, what is that trigger? So that's the first thing. We introduce learner mindset, fixed mindset, and the concept of trigger events. Another thing as well is that we go quite deep with some selected senior leadership team. And these are like really the sort of like the top 100 leaders at Shell. And we start to talk about triggers. You can imagine it's not always smooth ride, right? When you have really intellectual people that's used to kind of like be on their mind, and now you really challenge them to go deep in their heart. But when it works well, we started to see this in our global engagement. Some leaders start to talk about their own trigger events. And that's really inspiring. When you have global engagement attended by 10,000 people, and then you have a senior vice president talking about their personal trigger events. Wow.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.